There are completely different markings on the racetrack on the same fins in front of the grandstands. The same split on the bench is too easy to film, two different ones have to be built. The cowboy in the pink shirt comes from somewhere on the left and sits in front of the heroes, even to a minute earlier he was already sitting on the bench on the opposite side. The man in the cap behind Hunt gets up and walks away, 10 seconds later he does the same thing again.
I can't see now.
Do you have such a desperate need to see that foot of track behind the cap? The canister was supposed to spill 1-2 liters of oil on the ground, but here it's like a whole barrel being spilled. The cowboy changed seats to get out of the way, and after a couple of minutes it turned out he was still sitting on the same bench. The bolts would not even unscrew during an earthquake, let alone if we're just talking about some slight vibration of the track. This car takes flight only because of the special contraption placed under it, as cars do not tip over as easily as if they were made of cardboard. As always, the people in this saga seems to be made of mashed potatoes and fall apart like mere puppets. Incidentally, after exploding the mechanic's girlfriend's head, the wheel should have run over everyone in the back, but it disappeared in the air because it is drawn in CGI. And it is impossible for an intact engine to fly hundreds of meters in one direction instead of getting torn to tiny pieces. And in general, this accident looks like some kind of natural disaster like a tornado. All that's missing is that the Earth's crust opens up and lava starts coming out. You can clearly see that the collapsed ceiling has completely covered Hunt and Janet, but a second later they are only half covered. Plot hole: when in the prediction the cowboy sits in front of the heroes, everyone in the audience jumps to their feet. When we see him again at the same time, nothing similar happens, even though it should be the exact same events.
Lost your fucking mind!
The mechanic's girlfriend is again killed by a wheel, and the director forgot that the wheels flew only at the beginning of the incident, and not 2 minutes after the start, when the stands were already on fire. During the title, we are shown Rory's death from the second part where he raises his arms, even though he had his arms down at the time and in fact one arm had been severed by the wire. No sane person of while will write death in the name of his club. The protagonist has the strange habit of keeping a surgical scalpel on his bedside table. Carter sits in front of George's house in a parked car. In the next shot it is swung around as if it were still moving, a second later it is parked again. Following the sense of the saga, the chain of events leading to the hero's death should unfold naturally, but many deaths are just the result of actual magic. The vehicle has doors closed and windows up, but inside there is such a wind that the horses falls, and a radio causes such a vibration that a beer falls from the dashboard. Why does the engine explosion shatter Carter, who was lying on the ground 15 feet away, causing his head to fly off as if his stomach had exploded? Reporters at the scene decided to film close-up footage of a random house door that has nothing to do with what happened. Samantha finds out that because of Carter's accident, the hairdresser did not show up at the beauty salon, because apparently if someone dies in an accident, all the neighbors have the day off. And then it turned out that it was 10 minutes past closing time, so she must have shown up almost an hour after the scheduled time. The level of the water in the glass changes completely, and objects continue to magically move as if we were at Hogwarts. Neither Samantha nor the hairdresser cutting her hair can see the smoke canister that is jiggling noisily right in front of their noses. Lawnmowers don't shoot rock at the speed of a bullet, and the article talks about rocks flying at the speed of the light. Science fiction has an absurd level.
Weird is putting tampons in your kids' ears. That's weird. She was bound to die sooner or later.
Why is that if you take care of your children you deserve death? That logic makes sense. The authors, as usual, did not look at the easiest parts, so they don't know that the wreckage of the plane in the first film fell directly into the ocean. The full moon cliché is present here as well. 2 days after the worst automobile accident in US history, which killed 52 people, the scene of the tragedy should be isolated and full of detectives, other than being open to the public. Why do you sneak up on people like a maniac instead of calling them back humanly from a distance? Apparently, at an old racetrack, there were hundreds of surveillance cameras.
That's where that guy in the mechanic jacket died.
So why wasn't his dad captured by a camera pointed at that exact spot? What quality should these surveillance cameras have on which one can zoom in similarly and read even the tiny print sharply? Someone in the workshop, instead of working, is throwing sparks over the edge of the car from some kind of pipe. And in the exhaust pipe of the motorcycle, a flamethrower was mounted from what it looks like. And how could the mechanic be lying under fallen vehicle if he could not reach it with his hands in this lifted state? When the mechanic goes outside to talk to the boys, a high fins by between them for no reason. And by the law of the cinematic coincidence, Andy dies at the exact moment that Chu comes to warn him that he might die. And the fans would only cut him like a cake if he had a protruding blades instead of edges. Phones don't die instantly after a few drops of water on the screen. Pool pumps are always locked and indoors, not in the common area behind a small fence. And pulling the lever down always means turning it off. The strip on the car windshield completely changed position and size. And it's also clearly visible that the sunroof is tightly closed, which the director forgot about after a minute. Why does the phone screen say no incoming calls today if Janet had just received a call from Laurie? The rear view mirror suddenly flipped 180 degrees without being touched. They want us to believe that the car wash brush is a mortal danger to Janet, even though it might at best wash her head intensely. And I think it's pointless to ask where all the workers and customers of this car wash are, who should be here and hear the screams instantly. By the way, there are no water pipes with enough pressure in the car washers to fill the cars to the brim with water, and the cars are not airtight at all and will leak liquids from all the holes in the bodywork. You can only drown in the car if it ends up in a river where liquids cannot leak out. The accident in the pool is the same as before. The flow of water suddenly becomes so violent that it breaks the drain grate. And when Hunt gets close to the pump, he sucks it in until he becomes a fountain, even though there are no motors of such power in normal pools. And how is it possible that he was at the bottom for more than 2 minutes without being noticed by the lifeguard or other 30 people hovering around him? Were they all stuck by sudden blindness? During the incident with the pump, one dial shows a pressure of 19 psi, while the other shows 160 at the same time. The hose falls and smashes the windshield, but it is back intact in later scenes. Now a gust of wind inside an enclosed room knocked out over a full coffee cup, all through to do so will have had to be so strong as to carry away the entire table. And there would hardly have been dry stains left on the paper after an entire cup of coffee got spilled on it. All of George's suicide attempts had ended in nothing because he was not next on death list, which was very lucky that he decided to use all methods that could be easily thwarted. Who knows what she would have done if he had used a rifle or thrown himself under train at the last second. The foam in the glasses disappears as the perspective changes, then reappears again.
Groves was rescued in the rubble.
In movies, as soon as you turn on the TV, there is always something important inherent in the plot and never a commercial. A few days after the accident, the cowboy lies in the hospital as bloody as he had been pulled from the wreckage 10 minutes ago. The water gushes out of the bathtub with such power as if instead of a simple faucet, it came out of a pressure washer. At the same time, there is not a soul in the hospital who notices that one floor is flooded with water, while on another floor it rains from the ceiling. And of course, the ceiling in the hospital are not made of reinforced concrete, but of weird cardboard. Why old people need an elephant tub to bathe? And in real life, such tubs are built after a careful examination of the structure of the building. Here it is obvious that she's mirroring herself by looking at the camera instead of herself. On the territory of the hospital, ambulances run faster than race cars, and as usual, the director doesn't know that the bodies hit at grand speed do not stay under the wheels, but fly away for dozens of meters. In the cinema, workers solve the boards on the machines and plant the nails without in any way interfering with the audience watching the films right behind the wall. The corset wizards, even on the escalator, won't let Laurie pass in peace. They have taken and traded the laces between the steps. A new crime against physics, the fan moves along the trolley as it will wear a piece of styrofoam. And when making repairs, apparently there is a great need for dozens of large barrels with explosives. Just 100 kilos of TNT missing and we are set. By the way, the class 4 on the label indicates solids, flammable liquids are indicated by number 3. And here is something I don't understand. There is a fire burning, some canister explode, while people are quietly watching the movies behind the wall and don't smell any explosion or burning smell. The escalator mechanism is a kind of phrased meat grinder of the horror movie, and when Laurie's leg gets caught in it, her mouth bleeds for no logical reason. Among other things, we can clearly see that instead of body, there is a rag doll, which does not have any bones. When Nick runs through the mall, in the corner of the screen you can see Laurie and Janet chasing him, even though according to the plot, they are watching the movie in the theater. Those guns shot nail only when pressed against a surface. Nick's arm was stuck with 2 nails, a second later with 4. The strange fire system does not even think to activate when the room is completely on fire, and only activates when the sensor is practically rusted. There is no point of activate the water if it's nothing left. Nick's stuck arm is clearly moving against the wall.